All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on Wikidata. Where are we? What's coming? Presented by Lydia Pincher. Before I introduce her, let me point you to this overview slide of just sort of basically go to the conference website if you need to find the schedule, if you need to find the code of conduct, all that sort of stuff. If you want to chat on Slack, that exists. If you need tech support, hop into Slack and go to the super tech support channel. Someone should answer you. This is live streaming on YouTube, so it's there. It will be recorded for later. If you have technical related questions, drop them in chat. Otherwise, feel free to ask your questions. Hold on, I will enable captions. Thank you for that note. Okay. Okay, and so if you have technical questions like where are the captions, feel free to drop those into chat. Otherwise, if you have like the substantive questions, put them in Q&A and we'll address those at the end of the session. So Lydia Pincher is the product manager for Wikidata at Wikimedia Deutschland. She studied computer science with a focus on innovation and language at the University of Karlsruhe, and she is a longtime free software contributor, most notably as a member of the board of KDE-EV. Take it away, Lydia.
Thank you so much. Let me share my. I can't share while you're sharing. Let me see. Okay, yes. All right, now you should see my slides. So thank you everyone for joining us and taking a deep dive into where's Wikidata now and where are we going with it. So as some of you might know, Wikidata on the 29th of October is turning 10 years old. That feels like such a long time and also so little time. And in those 10 years, we've built up a really useful knowledge graph that many, many people rely on and cherish. So if you're into that, I totally would love to see many of you at the 10th birthday party on the 29th of October. But in those 10 years, what have we achieved? Where are we? So right now, we have about 12,000 really, really lovely people who are building up Wikidata, who are collecting and maintaining the data that we have in Wikidata and making that available to you and anyone else for free. Here you can see some of them from one of our last in-person conferences. And all of that data that the Wikidata community collects and curates is then used in a ton of applications, services, visualizations, in a ton of technology. So we have, of course, Wikipedia is using data from Wikidata, but also journalism project like the OCCRP, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, that is using data from Wikidata to fight corruption. Or the Open Art Browser, which uses data from Wikidata to give you a really nice way into visual art and understanding art history, for example. Or this mobile application that was developed last year for the German federal election, where you could scan a billboard on the street that was advertising a party or a candidate, and then it would give you more information about the party, about the candidate and their positions based on data in Wikidata and other available sources. And this is just to give you a really short glance into where Wikidata is actually used today. And to give you a bit more of a sense of the scale, Right now, our Spocker endpoint, so the point where the technology where you can send queries on the data, is getting 21 million queries per day. So that is a lot for a publicly available endpoint. And if you are browsing any of the Wikimedia projects, then about 59% of them, of the articles in the Wikimedia project, so be that Wikipedia, Wikivoyage, Wikimedia Commons, and so on, use data from Wikidata in the article. Now let's look a bit at content. Wikidata's content is stored in these items. So here you can see a screenshot of the item for Earth, and it holds data about Earth, the concept of our planet. For example, that it is a terrestrial planet. And of those, we currently have about 98 million, bordering on 100 million. So that is quite a lot of data to work with. And to build out all these items, we need properties, like for example here, instance of, that is used to make statements. And here we have about 10,000 different properties that can be used to describe data in Wikidata. Many of those 10,000 properties are for catalogs of libraries or external websites and so on, to ensure that you can link all the data in Wikidata to other places on the web, other catalogs, other websites, other databases, other archives, and so on. So that helps make Wikidata really interlinked in the web of data. And taking all that together, right now we have about 1.4 billion statements, like you can see one here, that describe many, many things in the world. In this case, for example, this is a statement to indicate that the taxon name for a whale shark is Rhincodon typus, and the author of that taxon is Andrew Smith, and he published that in 1828. And with 1.4 billion statements, you can do a lot of cool stuff. But Wikidata doesn't just have this data that you can see in items that describes general concepts in the world. Wikidata also has like themes. And this is a bit of a newer, more undercover part of Wikidata, let's say, but nonetheless, very cool part of Wikidata. And that is the lexicographical data in Wikidata. And that is, like you can see here, a lexeme for the English adjective red. So the lexicographical data part in Wikidata describes not the concept of the color red, for example, but the word red. And like you would find it in a dictionary, for example. And of those, right now, we have about 667,000 lexemes across several hundred languages. As I said, this is still in development. So if you're interested in lexicography, this is your part of Wikidata to check out as well. Now, this is a ton of data, right? And people in Wikidata are coming together around so-called wiki projects. And there are wiki projects about pretty much anything. Here are just a few with cool logos that you can check out. For example, there's Wikidata project books. There's one for medicine. There's one for video games. There's one for Star Trek. Also one for Star Wars. There's one for genes and genealogy. And astronomy, of course. Whatever you're interested in, there's probably a wiki project where you can find like-minded people and that you should check out. That takes care of the data in that particular area of Wikidata. Now, what I talked about so far is where we are today, right? Now the question is, where do we go from here? After 10 years, we basically took the time and said, okay, what are we actually working towards now that Wikidata is there and matured? And some things haven't actually changed that much since Wikidata started. So we want to work towards a future in which people are really empowered to collect and organize the data that describes their world and that describes humanity's understanding of the world. And we want diverse communities to be involved in that. We want diverse communities to participate in Wikidata and also in the larger Wikibase ecosystem around it. And we want these communities to create a large open and free knowledge graph to enable a thriving linked open data web. Now, we don't want that data just to exist for the sake of the data existing. No, we want it to be the base of which people, companies, institutions all build their apps and services, and by doing that, make the world a better place. To visualize that a bit, what this looks like, here you can see a bit of a visualization of Wikidata in the middle, being very connected to the other Wikimedia projects, but also to the rest of the Wikibase ecosystem that my colleague George was talking about before this session. So you can see all of these potentially more specialized Wikibases that hold other data than Wikidata or more niche data than Wikidata, but still tightly connected to each other and to Wikidata. And of course, then all of that is also connected to the larger linked open data web. And through all these connections, it makes it very easy to get to a lot of data that people are using to build applications and services. Now, if you look at Wikidata from a few feet away, what's really important? And there are three things. First of all, contributors, because we have this amazing community that creates content. Then that content enables reuse. So building applications and services on top of that data, on top of that content. And that reuse then hopefully attracts new people who are interested in building out the data that Wikidata has and become contributors. So it's kind of this virtuous cycle. And of course, a few things are also changing around Wikidata that we are aware of and need to be aware of. The first one is that data quality is becoming more and more crucial. And the pressure on Wikidata to have high quality data, to have correct data, to have verifiable data is becoming higher. The more Wikidata is integrated in really crucial technology that we use every day. And we need to address that. Another thing that is changing now is that more and more of the contributors to Wikidata are not necessarily coming to wikidata.org and editing in the UI there, but they are editing from outside of Wikidata through, for example, specialized applications that their library has developed to make it easier for their patrons to contribute to Wikidata in a very particular subject area, for example. And we need to find ways how to integrate all that into the larger processes and the community of wikidata.org. And last but not least, the Wikibase ecosystem is developing and is growing. And this means that, for example, some of the data that is today in Wikidata can potentially move into some of those other Wikibase instances and still be available, still be queryable, still be reachable, but put less pressure on Wikidata itself to maintain that data and to make it available. And based on everything I've just told you, there are a few things we are focusing on now. To be exact, 5. And I will go into each of them in a second. We want to empower editors to increase the data quality. We want to facilitate equity in decision-making. We want to increase reuse for impact. We want to strengthen underrepresented languages. And we want to enable Wikimedia projects to share their workload. So the first one, empowering editors to increase data quality. So we need to ensure that the content of the data or the data in Wikidata is of high quality. And that only happens if our editors are equipped with everything they need to make that happen, all the right tools or the right processes. So the development team is focusing on providing that, building better tools and so on. And this includes also conversations with reusers, for example, to help them understand that they need to give back to Wikidata and not just take the data from Wikidata, but also need to have an active role in understanding and upkeeping of Wikidata. Then we have facilitate equity in decision-making. Wikidata is a global project that should serve everyone. And to make that happen, we need to ensure that a very diverse set of voices is heard in Wikidata. And this is especially important in some of the very fundamental decision-making processes that we have. And that is something we have to focus on now to make that happen. Then we have increased reuse for impact. Wikidata's data doesn't exist for its own sake. It exists to give more people more access to more knowledge. And that only happens if that data is used. So we want to make it easier to build applications on top of Wikidata. We want more people to benefit from that data. And here, while we want everyone to be able to reuse that data, we want to especially support people who are people and projects who are aligned with Wikimedia's mission and who give back to Wikidata and have an active role in its development. Then we have strengthening underrepresented languages. Here, we believe that more people should have access to knowledge and technology in their language. And that only happens if the fundamental data that the technology is built upon is also available in their language. So we are doing a lot, for example, in the lexicographical data space, but also in the items on Wikidata to help more people contribute data in their own language. And last but not least, enable Wikimedia projects to share their workload. One of the original ideas behind Wikidata was that we have one central place that stores data that then every Wikimedia project can use to only have to maintain that data once, right? If there's a new census here in Berlin, for example, it doesn't make sense that 300 different Wikipedias make a change to their content. It's enough if that happens once in Wikidata and then everyone benefits from it. So while that is already happening, it's not happening yet at the scale we would like to. So we want to put more work into making that easier, making more Wikimedia projects able to lessen their workload by relying on Wikidata. And with that, I come to the end. Thank you so much. And I hope to see many of you on Wikidata. And you can reach me by email or Twitter or on Wikidata. Yeah, do we have some questions that people would like to ask?
There's a lot of good information there. I don't. there are no questions in the Q&A yet. I was wondering if when you're trying to sort of engage these efforts of getting underrepresented languages or data sources, does Wikidata reach out to communities, or is it sort of you're hoping they eventually come to you?
Right. I think it would, of course, be easier to just wait and see, but that, of course, is not enough, right? That is not equitable. So we do, with the limited capacity that we have, do some of that outreach. For example, right now we have a program with a user group, the Igbo user group in Africa, who called Wikimedia Africa, which is around technical skills for people in their community. Specifically for lexicographical data, we're working together with the Abstract Wikipedia team, which is a new project that Wikimedia is working on, around providing content for under-resourced languages based on data in Wikidata and other places. And for that project, we picked focus languages from different communities like Igbo and Bengali, to specifically increase the content in those languages, and then be able to build Abstract Wikipedia content on top of it, and hopefully be a playbook and a showcase for the work.
Cool. And there is a question that came in. Is there a list where we can see the list of applications developed using Wikidata?
There is no one list because there's just so many, which is a bit sad because there's so much cool stuff that people just don't know about, and that even my team and I do not know about, right? Since anyone can access Wikidata's data to do with it whatever they want. Many times we only find out after the fact that someone built something really cool, or maybe never find out. But on Wikidata, there is a page called Wikidata:/tools, where some of the stuff built on top of Wikidata's data is listed, but it's by far not complete.
Cool. I've seen that page. It's both cool and there's so much more out there.
Yeah.
And while there are no other open questions, I have another question about the data quality. When there is sort of conflict about who, different people both feeling confident in what is correct, but it conflicts, how does the system, or what is the mechanism for managing that situation?
Right. That's the great thing about the Wikimedia project. It doesn't matter if anyone feels confident about something being right or wrong. It's all about what can you verify in a reliable source. So if there is a scientific paper, for example, published in something like Nature, then you can point to this and say, hey, look, this is published in a peer-reviewed journal, and should be considered a reliable source. Then that can go into Wikidata. If it's, well, I heard this from my grandpa, then maybe not, because you can't point to a reliable source in the Wikimedia sense for that content. And if you have conflicting sources that both reliable sources have conflicting data, then the cool thing about Wikidata is you can record both of those. And you can have conflicting data in Wikidata and say, like, okay, according to this source, it's that, and according to this source, it's that. Depending on what you're building and what you're using the data for, pick what is right for you.
Cool, that sounds great. Okay, there's another question. Can you go back to the slide with all the different specialized Wikidata, and how do these relate to the main Wikidata? Are specific properties being developed for those? I think it might be, I don't know if it was this one or the one with like the music and the
This one?
I'm not sure. Yes, it looks like this one.
Okay. So wiki projects that are here are basically just pages on Wikidata where people come together who are interested in a particular topic. So for example, Wiki Project Medicine, that's where the people who care about medical related data in Wikidata come together and talk about what kind of data they should have, how it should be modeled, new initiatives that they should do, or new applications that should be built on top of that data. And of course, sometimes there's overlap between some of those wiki projects, but it's usually no problem. And yeah, just check out some for an area of interest to you. That's where you find like-minded people.
And there's another question that came in through chat. In the future, do you see growth of individual Wikibase instances exceeding the growth of Wikidata?
Right. So this is basically this here. Yes, I can very much see that in terms of content. So when we talk about growth for a wiki, you can at least talk about the growth of the editor base and the growth of the content. And I can totally see there being wiki bases in the future that have more content than Wikidata, especially in big data domains like astronomy, where there could be a wiki base which has an item for every astronomical object that's ever been discovered. That's going to be way more than Wikidata has items right now. Something like this I could imagine. Another wiki base with as many editors as Wikidata, who knows? I would of course love for Wikidata to be the biggest one in that regard, but we will see where history takes us.
Okay, and as it goes, even though we're pushing up against the end, there's a question that should be addressed, and it always comes in at the end. So recently, there have been concerns about bots adding gender information to person Wikidata entities based on the person's name, leaving aside privacy concerns where people might need to be consulted on gender identification. Is there a policy related to data generated from algorithms versus data verified by humans? Great question.
We have a biography of living peoples policy, which governs data around living people and their biographical data. I don't think we have anything specific to algorithmically generated data for people yet, but maybe that's a conversation that should be had on Wikidata.
Yeah, I know that's a big issue everywhere right now. So that would be great. Okay, it is 7 o'clock, so I wish we could talk forever, but we can't. There's so much other good stuff coming up, but this was great. Thank you, Lydia, so much.
Thank you so much for having me.